Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and again, another round of coffee and questions. This time, when I was looking through a lot of the suggestions and things on the forum, we were looking at ways you can store steel or scrap steel, any kind of steel, whether it's angle iron, rectangular steel, these types of things. You get them home, you cut things, you have leftovers, you don't know what to do with them, you don't know a very efficient way to store them. I'm going to throw up some ideas and we're going to talk about them briefly and see if I give you any ideas for your home or garage. All right, here we go. Okay, let's take a look at the picture on the far left to start with. Now this is a simple rack that this guy made out of tube steel, and he used some angle iron. So angle iron's readily available at any steel supply place, even if you're using old bed frames. Now, I'm going to caution you about something before we begin. I had a question a while back where somebody was making something a little bit more structural. Anything that's structural, you don't want to use, these bed frames and stuff. They're not made out of the same high quality grade steel. But they're good for around the home projects and stuff like this. And this is for vertical storage racks, for metal. So let's take a look at the one, like I said, over on the far left. Now this is real simple to make. And he made this out of a lot of probably used angle iron that he had laying around from what I read. Now the base of this, down where you see the floor jacks are, you can make this out of anything. You could drop a piece of wood in there. He used expanded steel. Maybe you've got some sheet metal laying around. It's more or less whatever you've got that you want to make that base out of. So you can make this base and you can put in it whatever you want after you've used that angle iron. And then he went out to Harbor Freight, from what I read. He picked up some casters. They don't have to be anything super heavy, just decent casters, because he wants to be able to move it around his shop. I do the same thing. A lot of my stuff is on rollers. I can redesign my shop quickly, or I can pull a lot of stuff out into the driveway and really open it up, so I've got a large area to work in. So it's nice to have things mobile. Anyway, back to this. You can see where he put some little drop chains on there to hold it from falling forward. But the rack itself, after you've put those vertical pieces in, you can see where the one in the front slants towards the one in the back. And then he built these little trays in there for putting smaller scrap pieces of steel. And that's a good idea. And on the back of it, he created a little bit of room there where he could put like sheet metal in there. Now, you're not going to get big 4x8 sheets to set in there or anything big like that, but he's got the small cutoffs in there. And in the front, he's got what amounts to just a couple of bays there where he can drop his steel. And it's a decent little storage thing. If that's not going to do it for you, let's switch to the one in the middle for a minute. And he made this out of rectangular tube steel. It looks pretty clean. It looks nice. He's got it painted red. It looks pretty good. And he's got it in the corner, of his shop. And so in there, he's got this, it looks like cold rolled, probably 3/8. You could probably get away with 1/4 inch. Even rebar or something you got laying around, you can create those square pockets like he did, where you see all that steel sticking up, from or through. And on the bottom, you can create a base out of whatever you want. Like I said, expanded metal works real good. There's a lot of times out at the steel suppliers, there's always cutoffs of expanded steel and plate steel or sheet steel. And you can always come across pieces big enough for a project like this, and it won't cost you that much. You don't have to buy the whole sheet. And in this case, he didn't put wheels on it because I guess he knows he's going to leave it fairly stationary sitting there. And the sheet steel and stuff he puts to the very back, like against the wall. If you look real hard, you can see, where he slid it in there in between, the wall and the storage unit itself. So the question is, well, what tools are you going to need? A chop saw makes it go a little bit faster and cleaner cuts. But if all you have is a 4.5 inch angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, you can get away with that too. Now, you can create these angles, or you can wait and you can lay this out like on the garage floor. And you can make this any dimension that you want. It's up to you. It's your project. But make sure you get enough material. If you don't, you can set it to the side until you can go out there again and pick up whatever else you need. But usually, like the cutoffs and stuff, you can visually, if you sketch this out before you go, it's easy to pick up everything that you need in the lengths and the widths that you want. And if you don't come across that cold rolled steel in 3/8 that creates those square cubbies, You can turn around and make it, you can make it out of, let's say, 1/2 inch, rectangular steel or whatever small steel they got laying around. It doesn't have to be this round stuff. It doesn't have to be rebar. So it's kind of like I go through the scrap once I have my sketch with me, and I figure, okay, if they don't have any of this, I'll use this. And you can play around and you can design this yourself. You don't have to make it the same way. You don't have to make it the same dimensions. This gives you a basic idea. Get a piece of paper and start sketching out what's going to fit in terms of dimensions in your garage, or what's going to fit what you need. Maybe you don't need something like this. Maybe you need something smaller, like the one over on the far left. And again, you can change the dimensions. Now, let's look at this other one over on the far right, and then I got a couple more to show you, and we'll go to questions. One over on the far right to me is a lot more elaborate. I don't have anything like this. I don't think it would be nice to have, yeah, but I'm not going to go through all the trouble of welding all of these, pieces of round and creating all of these little cubby holes and stuff for slipping steel into. I don't have that much steel for me to worry about having, to be able to organize to that degree. But the picture's up here to give you an idea. Like I said, if you like the design itself, you can always modify it. It doesn't have to be exactly like the way it is in the picture. The pictures are giving you ideas. From this, you could turn around and design your own. So let me throw up a new set of pictures and we will talk about a couple more. Okay, let's take a look at the one above my head. Now, in the case of this one, he got the wood platform like I was suggesting, and he used PVC, and he created additional storage in the front for dropping small pieces of steel down into them, which is a pretty good idea, and he varied the lengths of the PVC. So you're probably looking at 2.5, 3-inch round, whatever you think when you're out at Home Depot or Lowe's. And all you have to do is secure them to the bottom here. And then these rails that come up, you can see where he's bolted them in at the top. Okay, now I'm not going to bolt mine. I would weld them, and I would put casters on them like he did down here. Now he put locking casters if you look real close. And that's probably a good idea if you want to do it, but I didn't have the need for it. I've built a couple of these so far and sold them. But, I didn't use the locking casters. If somebody wanted them, I'd put them on there, of course, but they're going to cost a little bit more. But this one right here is a very simple design. I mean, you can come straight up the back. You can come up the front here and a little bit of an angle to a square, rectangular piece. And again, what I did is I used that angle iron. I mean, because it's readily available, it's inexpensive, and I can cut it and put it together quickly and weld it up. Then you can turn around and you can run rod right through it. Now you can use 1/2 inch rod, you could use 3/8, whatever you want, and you can run them from one side to the other, and then everything lays in there like you see in the picture. And on the back, and the second picture in the one right here, right next to it, shows you how he took that sheet metal and he's able to lay it to the back, and that keeps it up off of the ground, keeps it from rusting out quick, and it's a good place to secure. It's a good place to store it, as long as they're not real large pieces. You might be able, depending on the dimensions that you make, I suppose you could make one where you could set up a 4x8 sheet, but these really weren't made, to store large pieces of sheet metal like that. But these are good ideas for steel storage. If you have the use, take a look at the last one over here on the far right. Now this is a big one for a much bigger shop. And it's a lot of the same design as we saw in the first one, but it'll give you an idea if you choose to make one much, much bigger. For me, I kind of stick to these designs right above my head. I've made 3 of them, and I've sold 3 of them, and I've got one I'm going to make for myself and keep, because each one I keep making, well, I keep selling it. How do I do that? I keep pictures on my phone, I show them to people, and then we tweak it to their liking. I give them a price. So it's another way to help you fuel, your projects and your hobby at home. All right, let's go over to questions and answers. Which design do I prefer the most? I make it very similar to the one above my head. I'll leave the picture up here for coffee and question time. But I like this one because I do use those round pieces of PVC in the very front, because I get a lot of really short cutoffs sometimes, and I don't want to throw them out because I use them on little art projects, or I might use them to create like bases for the wheels. That leads to somebody else's question, where do I get my wheels? Well, I get them out at Harbor Freight, but I don't buy the cheap ones. I like nice, fat, wide ones that are made out of like that polyurethane kind of material, because I have a concrete floor, and I love how these things glide across. You can grab them with one hand, and it just glides across the concrete. So I don't put really cheap casters on them, and it's all built into the price anyway. Your customer's going to be a lot happier that you didn't use these chintzy, cheapo wheels. So, I buy the much better quality ones, because I think it's just going to be a better project all the way around. Is there anything wrong with bolting them? No. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. You can drill and bolt this thing. You can drill additional holes along that, that angle iron if you want, and you can reposition those rods that go across. If you wanted to make it like more adjustable, you can do that too. I didn't do them that way. To give you a direct answer, I figured it out from looking at the pictures. How I wanted these bars mounted, and I went ahead and held them into the angle iron, and I just welded them in with my MIG welder. That's the way I did it, and it worked out fine. And yes, I used wood bases. I use 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch plywood. It depends on what I have either lying around or when I go out there. What I see that's on sale that I can buy. Sometimes it's OSB, sometimes it's shop grade plywood. It's just cut-offs. It's whatever I see that I can get a good bargain on. So don't forget, it's the base of something. It's not going to matter, the quality. I just want good, thick, heavy duty base. So that's what I use. And yes, you can put the sides on there like you see in the picture. And I do that too, in case you want to put small scraps in there like you see to the one, just above me here to the right. You can put small scrap in there and it doesn't fall out the sides. These are real quick and easy to do just out of that scrap plywood. These things are just real easy, and you can drill holes and run bolts through the side like you see in the picture. That's about the only time that I'm really bolting anything down. The base, I just set it in there because the sides, once they're bolted to the frame, are going to hold it in there anyway. It's not going to go anywhere. So I think that answers your question. Yeah, no, I get it. Well, okay, it's an opinion. It looks a little cheap or ghetto, whatever you're going to say, to use PVC, but it's a storage thing. It's not a beauty contest like I keep saying in a lot of my videos, and it works really, really good. The other thing, just as a side note, I use PVC like this sometimes, and I have caps on the ends. And I used to store welding rod in them. I'm not using a lot of welding rod, but I just had one. It's a perfect storage thing for anything like that, and it keeps everything clean. So PVC, and you can use them to hang drills, all this other stuff, but that's, a different topic, and I've done videos on how you can make those. If you want to, go back through and take a look for that video, it'll show you how you can make them, and you can hang your drills and so forth. But no, nothing wrong with using PVC in my opinion. No sense in using black pipe or anything like that. It's just like way overkill, way overboard. So it works good. Okay, again, not a lot of questions on the topic. This is meant to give you ideas. Give me comments below. If you have a better idea or another way of doing it, I think that's great. But you can go out in your shop, and you can make this any way that you want, any dimension that you want, figure out where you're going to put it in your garage, use that as your, your base or your basic dimension, to create, that base that I keep saying. And then from there, the rest of this will be whatever height that you want, whatever width that you want. And have some fun doing it. Practice your MIG welding. All right, I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe. Keep following me. You folks have a good day. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.